Just like slot machines, they promise,
watch it spin and watch you win.
but here's the thing, you can't win. You'll never strike it rich playing these games because the jackpots, they pay out in virtual coins and there's no way to cash them out.
We found in our research that young people are certainly playing these games.
In the privacy of your own home, in a work break, whenever you want to, because you've always got a phone in your hand.
They should be banned.
This is the world of social casinos, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. The games are free to play to an extent. If you run out of virtual coins, you'll be prompted to buy more. The social casino industry is no game. It's dominated by some of the world's biggest names in gambling. There's a chance you've been bombarded with ads like this on social media.
Yes, yes. Look at that huge win.
Imagine a world where the thrill of gambling is no longer confined to smoky casinos or high-stakes poker tables. Instead, it's in the hands of millions, accessible with just a tap on a smartphone. But what happens when this world starts targeting our most vulnerable, the youth? This is the dark reality of social gambling, a booming industry disguised as harmless entertainment, infiltrating the lives of young players and blurring the lines between gaming and addiction. Welcome to a deep dive into one of the most insidious trends in gaming today. In this video, we'll expose how social gambling is paving the road to decadency, not just for individuals but for society as a whole. We'll start with a look at gambling itself and its destructive force on society. Then, we'll uncover the loopholes in age controls and how social gambling on mobile platforms is turning everyday players into addicts. But the question is, who's pulling the strings behind the curtain? We'll take a look at some of the companies driving this trend and discuss why accountability is long overdue. Stay with us as we uncover the truth about social gambling and its devastating impact. This isn't just another gaming video, it's a wake-up call. Mobile gaming has revolutionized the entertainment industry. Games that were once purchased outright are now free to download but come with a catch: microtransactions. These small purchases, often for in-game items or currency, have become a multi-billion-dollar industry. Among the most controversial are loot boxes, randomized rewards that players pay to unlock. The thrill of opening a loot box mimics the excitement of gambling, making it particularly addictive for younger players who may not understand the financial implications. Before we get going, we need to establish some already well-known facts. Gambling, often perceived as a form of entertainment, has seen a significant increase in participation over the past decade, leading to profound societal impacts. Gambling participation in the United States among adults rose from 43% in 2019 to 55% in 2024, indicating a growing trend. They also stated that the global market size of the casino and online gambling industry reached $305.8 billion in 2024, reflecting substantial economic activity. The global online sports betting market is expected to reach $45.43 billion in 2024, with a projected annual growth rate of 7.47% from 2024 to 2029, highlighting the rapid expansion of digital gambling platforms. The increase in gambling activities correlates with various societal issues, including financial hardships, mental health challenges, and addiction. The financial impact of gambling is staggering. In the United States, approximately 2.5 million adults meet the criteria for severe gambling problems annually, with an additional 5 to 8 million experiencing mild or moderate gambling issues. These individuals often accumulate substantial debts, leading to bankruptcy and economic instability. The correlation between gambling addiction and mental health issues is alarming. Research indicates that individuals with gambling disorders have the highest suicide rates among all addictions, with approximately 1 in 5 attempting suicide. This statistic underscores the severe psychological toll gambling can exact, often leading to depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders. Furthermore, studies have shown that debt can make a person up to 20 times more likely to consider an attempt suicide, highlighting the intertwined nature of financial and mental health crises stemming from gambling. Beyond individual suffering, gambling inflicts broader societal harms. The economic burden includes increased healthcare costs, lost productivity, and the strain on social services. Communities bear the weight of these challenges, facing heightened crime rates, family breakdowns, and diminished quality of life. When you download a game, especially a social casino game, the App Store usually provides an age rating. Google Play and Apple's App Store both have systems in place to categorize apps based on their content. Google Play Store assigns an age rating based on content and behavior, with games like these often marked for players 12+ or 18+. However, these ratings aren't always enforced strictly. A child could technically bypass these restrictions just by creating an account or using their parent's device. Apple App Store also uses an age rating system from 4+ to 17+. Similar to Google Play, these ratings are based on the content, but there's a lack of strong verification when you actually download the game. While these ratings exist, they aren't foolproof. The ratings are self-reported by the developers, and while platforms like Google and Apple require these ratings, the enforcement is minimal. Minors can still access content that's rated for adults. Now, let's talk about what happens when you actually go to install one of these games. There's no strong age verification system at the installation stage. Both Google Play and Apple give you a simple warning based on the game's rating, but they don't actively check your age before you download. If a minor has access to a device, they can easily install games rated for 18+ without being stopped. The only real control is if the device has parental controls set up by a guardian, which can restrict access to certain games based on their age ratings. But even that is not always reliable. Parental controls require action from the parent, and sometimes children can find ways to bypass these. So, let's say the game is downloaded and installed. Is there any in-game control to prevent minors from playing? Unfortunately, most social casino games don't have any active age verification mechanisms once you're inside the app. There's no age gate that checks whether you're really old enough to play. Some games will have a disclaimer or note in the terms of service, saying, "You must be 18+ to play." But it's easy to ignore those disclaimers or skip past them. These games use reward-based mechanics, like spinning virtual slot machines or collecting in-game currency, which can feel very much like gambling. But there's no in-game check to stop kids from getting hooked on these mechanics. So, while some apps include age-related disclaimers in their terms of service, there's no active mechanism to verify the player's age in-game. One of the biggest issues with these games is their use of in-app purchases and gambling-like mechanics. While they don't offer real money gambling, these games heavily rely on the purchase of virtual currency and rewards, often making it easier for younger players to get drawn into the addictive nature of gambling. Many social casino games allow you to buy virtual currency, and younger players, if left unsupervised, might be tempted to spend real money without fully understanding the consequences. Games like Huge Casino or Clubillion Vegas Casino offer simulated gambling experiences, which may lead players, especially younger ones, to form unhealthy habits or expectations regarding luck and rewards. These in-app purchases and gambling mechanics are not age-locked either. If a game is rated 12+ and a 12-year-old installs it, they can still access all the gambling-like features without a prompt or intervention. So, what's the problem with all of this? Well, there's a lack of enforcement. The platforms, Google and Apple, put the responsibility on the developers to rate their apps, but there's little follow-through to ensure minors aren't accessing adult-rated content. The system relies heavily on self-regulation and user compliance, and we all know how effective that is. Parental controls can help, but it's up to the parent to actively monitor the device. Without stricter in-game controls or age verification, it's really easy for a child to access these gambling-like games and potentially get hooked on them. So, what can we conclude? Well, while the age controls in place for downloading, installing, and playing social casino games like those from Huge Global, Spinx Games, and Zero Gravity Games are far from perfect, they do exist, but they need improvement.
They're only meant to be for people aged 18 plus, but that doesn't seem to be working. Various studies suggest between 12 and 25% of adolescents play social casinos. But that's not what the industry says. In 2018, it commissioned and published research that insisted less than 0.25% of players are under 18. And just 0.008% of players are under 18 and spend money in the games.
We found in our research that young people are certainly playing these games. We know that young people often change their age on social media platforms to gain access because there's no actual age verification. Young people are much more likely to list their age as higher than it actually is. So it's highly possible that, although industry statistics indicate that they're not playing the game, that young people are accessing these.
These are gateway drugs into more insidious forms of gambling harm that can be experienced by those who use them.
Research shows that these apps use psychological tricks to keep players hooked. A study published in Psychological Science highlights how near misses in games trigger the same brain responses as actual wins, creating a cycle of compulsive behavior. Young people, whose brains are still developing, are particularly vulnerable to these tactics. As Natasha Dow-Scholl, a researcher in behavioral addiction, points out, every feature in these games is crafted to enhance engagement. By simulating rewards, they tap into the same neural pathways as actual gambling, preying on the most susceptible players. A survey by the Gambling Commission found that 26% of 11 to 17-year-olds in the UK have played a gambling-style game in the past year. And the consequences are real: increased rates of anxiety, depression, and financial strain in adolescents. As someone who works with teenagers, I've seen firsthand how these games infiltrate their lives. During breaks or downtime, I've watched kids glued to their phones, spinning virtual slot machines and excitedly talking about their big wins. What's truly alarming is the mindset these games cultivate. Some of these kids, barely teenagers, confidently tell me how they'll make it big playing real casino games as soon as they turn 18. These apps are designed to mimic the thrill of gambling, with frequent small rewards and big wins that keep players hooked. They use virtual currency instead of real money, but the psychological impact is the same, especially on young, impressionable minds. Now, some of these kids may not be the sharpest tools in the shed, but that doesn't mean they deserve to be preyed upon by these ungodly companies. Everyone, regardless of their background or aptitude, deserves better than being lured into addiction through deceptive games. These games advertise themselves as free to play, but they're anything but. They hook players with free spins and bonus rewards, only to push in-app purchases when the fun runs out. And for teenagers, the line between spending fake money and real money can blur dangerously fast. The most insidious part? These games normalize gambling behaviors long before kids can even step foot into a real casino. By the time they're legally allowed to gamble, they've already developed the habits, the cravings, and the false belief that they can outsmart the system. We need to ask ourselves, who's responsible for protecting these kids? Companies like the makers of Clubillion and Slotomania are clearly not interested in safeguarding young minds. Their business thrives on addiction, and they're planting the seeds early. As adults, parents, and educators, we need to step up where these companies fail. These teenagers deserve better. They deserve a chance to grow up without being shackled by addiction before they even understand what they're up against. It's not just the big companies that are problematic and engage in unethical practices. Streamers and YouTube creators, such as Ninja Gamblers, are also part of the issue, publishing videos on how to make money from social casinos.
We've had our fun exploring the ins and outs of social casinos, but now we've arrived at the million-dollar question. Can you really make money with social casinos? First off, it's crucial to reiterate the nature of social casinos. These platforms are all about the thrill of the game, without the risk of losing real money. You play for tokens or virtual coins, which means the pressure's off and the fun's turned up to 11. But here's the kicker. Those tokens and virtual coins, they're not directly convertible into cold, hard cash. Social casinos are designed for entertainment, not for turning a profit. However, That doesn't mean there aren't ways to get a tangible value out of your virtual winnings. Some savvy operators have found ways to reward their most dedicated players. We're talking goodies, merchandise, or even entry into sweepstakes and real-world events. It's not exactly turning your tokens into cash, but it's something a bit special. A tangible touch to your online triumphs. And let's not forget the skills you're honing at these virtual tables. Strategy, patience, and a keen eye for the game. Skills that are transferable to the real-world casinos where, yes, real money can be made. So while you might not be cashing out your digital winnings, social casinos offer a wealth of other rewards, from the thrill of the game to the skills you develop and the non-cash prizes you can snag. It's all about the experience, the fun, and the community. And who knows? The strategies you master here might just pave the way for success in the real world of gambling.
Let's break down the claim that social casinos offer rewards like the thrill of the game, non-cash prizes, and skills you can apply in real casinos to earn money. First, the thrill of the game is nothing more than a carefully engineered dopamine hit. Social casino games are designed with flashing lights, sound effects, and unpredictable rewards to trigger the same psychological responses as real gambling. This thrill isn't a reward, it's a trap to keep you playing longer and spending more. Second, non-cash prizes like virtual tokens, spins, merchandise, or trophies are completely worthless outside the game. These so-called rewards keep players chasing an endless cycle of fake currency, while the game developers profit from in-app purchases when those rewards inevitably run out. Finally, the idea that you can develop skills for real casinos is laughable. Social casinos are purely games of chance. There's no strategy or skill involved when it comes to slots, only algorithms designed to give you just enough wins to keep you hooked. As for live casino games like blackjack or roulette, the house always has the edge, regardless of strategy. And when you do move to real gambling, you'll find that the odds are even worse and the losses far more devastating. So, what are you really learning? Not how to win, but how to crave the next spin, the next win, and the next rush. The truth is, the only thing you're likely to develop from social casinos is an addiction.
In most states and territories, machines have to pay out, over the long term, at least 85% of what's put in. In the ACT and South Australia, it's a little higher, and the minimum return rate's usually higher again in casinos. None of that applies to social casinos. Developers are free to vary the odds of winning from spin to spin.
They pay out a lot more than real-world gambling would be expected to. It's important consumers aren't misled in any way to think that their outcomes on a simulated game with no real-world value are similar to what they should expect if they play a real money casino.
And there's nothing stopping them from manipulating the odds to maximise the chances that you keep playing for longer or spend money. And that could trick people into thinking they know how to win.
Among our research participants, a substantial amount were saying that they expected their skills were increasing and that they were getting good at these games and they would have favourable outcomes if they went and played real money gambling games.
And that has been, a fairly reasonable cause of concern because it may groom people to take part in gambling.
Let us take a closer look at some of the bigger players in the industry: Huge Global Limited, Zero Gravity Games, Ouroboros Technology Pte. Ltd., and Hong Kong 777's Interactive Company, Ltd. Let's start with Huge Global Limited, based in Poland. This company is behind the massively popular Huge Casino app. According to publicly available records, its parent company is Huge Incorporated, a global gaming company headquartered in Delaware, USA. The company's founder and CEO, Anton Goffin, has been a vocal advocate for social casinos, a term that conveniently downplays the addictive nature of these games. Huge Incorporated reported annual revenues exceeding $300 million, much of which comes from microtransactions made by players worldwide. While the games are free to download, their entire business model hinges on encouraging addictive spending behaviors. Next, we have Zero Gravity Games, a company shrouded in mystery. While their exact corporate structure is difficult to trace, what we do know is that they specialize in hyper-casual and gambling-like mobile games. Their lack of transparency is concerning. These are the kinds of companies that operate in legal gray areas, exploiting loopholes to avoid scrutiny. Then there's Ouroboros Technology Pte. Ltd., registered in Singapore, and Hong Kong 777's Interactive Company, Limited, based in Hong Kong. Both of these entities are directly linked to the controversial game Clubillion Vegas casino slots. Despite extensive research, the ownership structures of these companies remain opaque. Why is it so hard to find out who's running these companies? The answer lies in shell corporations and strategic registrations in jurisdictions with lax disclosure laws. This deliberate obfuscation makes it nearly impossible to hold anyone accountable. What we do know is that these companies are profiting off games like Clubillion, which target younger players under the guise of social gaming. And while the individuals pulling the strings remain hidden, the trail of harm they leave behind is all too visible. It's clear that these companies are not just selling games, they're selling addiction. And their efforts to shield their operations from scrutiny only underscore their unethical intentions. These companies may hide, but their actions are casting a long and damaging shadow over society. The responsibility begins with the platforms that host and promote these games. Companies like YouTube, Google, and Apple are complicit in the gambling epidemic by allowing these apps to advertise without sufficient scrutiny. These ads often appear during videos that appeal to teenagers and even younger children. Algorithms designed to maximize engagement don't discriminate between harmless content and harmful propaganda. YouTube, Google, Apple, your platforms are profiting from the exploitation of vulnerable users. You have the resources to implement stricter policies, enforce age verification, and ban predatory ads. So why aren't you? But it's not just the tech giants. Politicians and legislators have a crucial role to play. Despite growing evidence of the harm caused by gambling apps, regulation remains weak. We need stronger laws that ban gambling ads targeting underage users. Require rigorous age verification for all gambling-related content. Hold companies accountable for predatory practices. These changes won't happen on their own. We must demand action from our elected officials. Parents, this fight also begins at home. While we push for systemic change, you have the power to protect your kids right now. Educate your children about the risks of gambling, set boundaries on app downloads, and monitor their online activity. These steps are not just proactive, they're essential. The gambling industry thrives in the shadows of complacency. It's time to shine a light and demand responsibility from platforms, politicians, and ourselves. Thank you for watching. If you believe in holding these companies accountable, share this video and subscribe to the channel. If this has caught your interest, I recommend these 2 videos about gambling and betting, The Online Gambling Epidemic by Drew Gooden and If Casinos Were Honest by Honest Ads.